I'm sorry I did that to us, man. Oh.
No, please.
You know, Diddy bought his son a Bentley. Maybe, you know, he could buy you one also while you're
He
out.
got me a Lamborghini.
Oh, well, that's nice.
I haven't gotten it yet, though.
Yeah, I know. When is that coming, that Lamborghini? We talked about this last
He
time.
had the Lamborghini for a day or two, and he had access to the house, and he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
You know, Justin Bieber had a post the other day on his Instagram talking about all the drugs that he did when he was younger and how much it f***ed him up. And now he's got a relationship with the Lord, and he's got, you know, he's married, and he's trying to be a normal person.
Yeah.
But he's struggling with the fact that he was insanely famous when he was a kid.
They wouldn't let him. Actually, someone made reference to the fact that Diddy trying to get at Bieber the way he was trying to get at Bieber was looking a little predatory. And then Usher came in and discovered it and managed him and got custody of him and promised to look after him. And then he sent him to the diddler. Does that sound like a good guy?
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Does that sound like a good guy? Now that we know what Diddy's really like, what kind of fucking asshole do you gotta be to take another boy, another talented boy, and put him in your place so it ain't gotta be you no more? Because that's what pedophiles do. They get victims, and then once they get to a certain age and they get too old for them to enjoy them, they send them out to go get other young kids. Now, if Usher is a procurer, and if Usher knew what was going to happen to any of those young children that he took to the Flavor Freak off, is he a good guy? Especially considering what happened to him, especially considering that he sat with Howard Stern, and Howard Stern said, would you send your kids to Puffy's Flavor Camp? And his immediate response was, hell no! So it's good enough for everybody else's kids, but it's not good enough for yours.
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So.
Joe Rogan isn't the kind of person to get emotional easily. He's tough, sharp, and known for pressing his guests with direct, uncomfortable questions. But what happened on this particular episode of his podcast was different. Joe wasn't just shocked, he was heartbroken. And the reason? The story of what really happened to Justin Bieber when he was just 15 years old, and the disturbing role that Diddy allegedly played behind the scenes. The revelations didn't come all at once. They arrived slowly, layer by layer, each one darker than the last. Joe began the episode by revisiting a clip that many fans had dismissed as odd but harmless. In the video, Diddy was bragging about how Justin Bieber was staying with him for a 48-hour mentorship. He laughed, dodged details, and used vague phrases like having fun and a dream for a 15-year-old. But what sounded playful back then now takes on a completely different meaning in the current context. I've seen people in power misuse mentorship before, Joe said, looking down at a thick folder on his desk. But this is different. Inside that folder were documents, some public, some leaked from insiders close to the situation. Travel records, legal filings, emails between handlers, and even personal notes written by a young Justin Bieber. Joe flipped through them as he spoke, clearly disturbed by what he had discovered. One note, scribbled in quick handwriting, read, "Can I go home now? I'm really tired." It was just one sentence, but that sentence hit Joe like a punch to the gut. What kind of environment makes a kid feel like he has to ask permission to rest? Joe asked. The story that unfolded across the next hour was chilling. Joe laid out how Diddy was given unusual access to Justin's schedule, lodging, and travel arrangements during key parts of his early fame. Despite not being Bieber's manager or legal guardian, Diddy was able to orchestrate entire trips and intensives that kept Justin isolated, overworked, and separated from his usual support system. Joe played another old clip, this time from Usher, the artist credited with discovering Justin. In the clip, Usher is asked whether he'd ever send his own children to Diddy's mentorship camp. His response was immediate. Absolutely not. Joe paused the clip. So let me get this straight, he said. You knew it wasn't safe for your kids, but it was okay for someone else's? That contradiction hit hard. Usher had vouched for Diddy and introduced Justin into that world. But when asked if he'd send his own family into the same situation, his answer was a firm no. Joe didn't accuse, he questioned, but his tone made it clear there was serious doubt about the decisions that led to Justin being placed in Diddy's hands. Joe went on to describe the atmosphere Bieber was exposed to during those so-called mentorship sessions. Former staff and tour members spoke anonymously about high-pressure rehearsals that stretched into the early morning hours, days where no outside communication was allowed, and hotel stays booked under shell companies that kept the location off official records. Justin wasn't just being trained, he was being controlled. Surveillance footage played a key role in what came next. Rogan described a clip that had been handed over to authorities and shown to legal teams. In it, Justin, looking exhausted and carrying a guitar, is seen walking down a hallway at nearly 3:15 a.m. Two unknown adults trail him closely. The camera catches a glimpse of a whiteboard inside a nearby room. Written on it, full immersion weekend, no phone, no distractions, no outsiders. Joe leaned back in his chair, visibly disturbed. That's not mentorship, he said. That's isolation. That's manipulation. He didn't stop there. Rogan shared portions of a mental health evaluation conducted during Justin's early rise to fame. The report described heightened anxiety, signs of emotional burnout, and a strong sense of entrapment. It referenced reward-based conditioning and emotional dependency, warning that without intervention, the young star could suffer long-term psychological effects. And it wasn't speculation. Joe had the names, the files, the receipts. Then came the testimony from industry insiders. These weren't bitter ex-employees or random bloggers. They were tour coordinators, junior agents, and former assistants. They described a pattern where Diddy would recruit young male talent, host them at private estates, and implement rigid, round-the-clock routines under the banner of career development. Phones were removed, communication with family was discouraged, and everyone involved knew not to ask too many questions. It's been called mentorship, one insider reportedly said, but it always felt like something else. The reactions to Rogan's podcast were immediate. Social media exploded, fans demanded answers, journalists began digging into old interviews, and hashtags calling for justice for Bieber trended within hours. By the end of the day, 3 major brands had already distanced themselves from Diddy-related projects, and a music streaming platform quietly removed several tracks from curated playlists. But for Joe, it wasn't about canceling anyone. It was about shedding light, saying, look at the pattern. Look at how many people turned away when they should have stepped in. He issued a direct challenge to the music industry. If you saw something and kept quiet, now's your chance to speak up. Silence doesn't protect anyone. It only enables more damage. Joe wrapped the episode with a heartfelt commitment. All proceeds from the podcast would be donated to nonprofit groups that protect young artists from exploitation, offer legal guidance, and provide mental health resources for those struggling in the spotlight. I can't undo what happened to Justin, Joe said, but I can use this platform to make sure it doesn't happen to the next kid. The lights in the studio dimmed. The episode ended without dramatic music, just the quiet hum of truth settling into the air. Joe Rogan wasn't just reacting. He was leading the charge toward a much-needed cultural shift. Justin Bieber's voice may have once been used to entertain millions, but now it's serving a higher purpose, waking the world up to the truth. Diddy's empire was built on image, influence, and power. But now that empire is cracking. And the voices that were once silent are finally being heard.